that distributed. It's one of them.
Good evening, everyone. Still getting used to this lavalier mic, so I hope everybody can hear me. I can hear myself pretty good, so everybody can hear me. Okay. All right, it's November 27th, and I'll call this meeting of the Mayor and Council to order at 6 p.m. The first order of business is the invocation, which will be given by Council Member Danny Carter, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Please stand. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we ask your blessings upon our nation, upon the state of Georgia, and especially upon the city of Villa Rica. As we meet tonight, we ask that you would be with us and help us conduct this meeting, lead, guide, and direct us so that we may do the things that are best for the citizens of Villa Rica and for our city. And please, Lord, help us to remember as we go into December that the reason for the season is the birth of the Savior, Jesus Christ. These things we ask in his name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, we're going to discuss the agenda. I would like to ask that we move item E1, which is the Gold Nugget Drop Fireworks bid, to the top, if that's okay with the council. Chief Tim Paget is here with us tonight, and I assume that's why the chief is here, so, and I'll get him up in just a few minutes, but if that's okay with y'all, I would like to move that to the top.
We're going
To the top before public comment?
No, we'll just make it,
You can make it A2.
yeah, we'll make it A2.
All right, make a motion, we move item E1 to A2.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you all. Any other changes on the agenda? Y'all have noticed that we do have it's changed. Well, I don't think it was on the one that was online, but F1 is a change that you have on your agenda that's printed before you, and that is use of the city vans for the Christmas tour of homes to the agenda. Okay, any other changes on the agenda? Okay, I would move that we approve the agenda as changed, adopted.
Well, I would make a motion that we approve the agenda.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we have reached the public comment portion of the meeting. Anyone wishing to give public comment, please do so at this time. State your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
I came here 2 weeks ago and asked y'all about the resurfacing of my street and the problem about the speeding down my street. I just want to know what on the list, where on the list is my street to be repaved. Thank you.
The city manager will get you the answer to those questions. So,
We'll be bringing that to council next meeting.
anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public comment portion of the meeting. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Kim, didn't see you good enough.
Hi, Kim Poor.
It's different, isn't it?
Hi, Kim Poor, 326 North Avenue. I had spoken with Leslie earlier and have forwarded her photos, 24 to be exact, of this main strip, the next block down, where people are constantly parking on the sidewalks. It's dangerous. There are several individuals in the community that have limitations, that walk and ride through these streets all the time. Somebody's going to get hurt. You have to get way out in the street. Once you see all of these photos put together, you're going to be surprised by whom I think are the two main offenders. They're both business people, and they're constantly on the sidewalks. It's just not good. So just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Kim showed me those photos, and I agree with her. What they're doing is they're using our sidewalks as an unloading zone. So Kim, if you can stick around, and I don't think our meeting's gonna last more than an hour. If you can stick around, show those photos to the chief, and we'll address that. Okay, anybody else? Okay, council updates.
Have a council,
one.
oh, go.
Something that I have been approached by some of the merchants as to wondering why the council is asking them, do they know Main Street people? And my answer is I don't know, because I didn't do it. So is there a reason for that, or what is going on?
I mean, you're asking me, I don't.
Whoever, that's just a question. Some of the merchants are saying that some of the council members, I don't know who is asking them, do they know Main Street people? And, they get items from the merchants for their, their little gatherings for like dough prizes and things. So I don't know why they wouldn't know the merchants. So I don't have an answer to give to them.
I do. Because it's me. I was going to actually put that in my update. I am the council member for Ward 3. During the year, a number of times I get out, either on my bicycle, walking, or if I get specifically called out to look at something anywhere in my ward, I go out, and I tend to park downtown, walk different areas so that I can see things that I wouldn't see when I'm driving through with the car. I also try to stay in contact with the business owners. My ward takes in the entire historic downtown area. And so what I decided to do is a fact-finding mission, because I've had certain things brought to my attention. One of them had to do with a parking issue, where the 2-hour parking is, some others where they can't get to their business, that sort of thing. What I decided to do to see how connected they were with staying with the city is I went around and visited pretty much every business that I could in the downtown area, and I asked them primarily the area of 3 questions. One was this: do you know who our economic development director is? Now, it's a little bit of a trick question because we don't have one right now. But if they knew, well, it was Chris Pike, but he's not here and we don't have one right now, I knew they were really tuned in with what was going on in the city, because that's kind of been a recent occurrence. I also asked them, do you know, or did you know, and do you know who our Main Street director is? Because we've had a change. We've had 2 within this one. We've made a change from one to another during this year, and I wanted to know if they knew who that was. And I also asked them if within the last year or 2 years, have they been visited by Main Street or an economic development person to see if we're loving on our businesses. I ran on a platform that's business and family friendly. I wanted to know if they felt like they were having that contact. The other thing that I found out, aside from I can put together those numbers, see how well we're connected, and take those to the city manager and staff, was I found out some things because while I'm there, they mentioned, oh, by the way, did you know when the parade route changed, that really caused an issue for us, but it'll really help us if we have more advance notice, because we won't have to call and cancel all our salon, appointments or whatever. So I met some new owners. They knew who I am. I know who they are. I'm their city council person. And even if I weren't their city council person, it's our downtown. We should be passionate about our downtown. And so that's kind of what I've done. I've been accumulating some numbers on how well I think they're connected, and if we're connecting with them, if they feel cared for. And I tried to remind as many as I could think of about the Rise and Shine business networking that we have once a month. That was a little bit of a big update, but that's what's going on.
Just asking.
This is not an update, this is a question. How come we're short a mic and y'all are having to share a mic over there?
I think we have such a superior system now. Can you hear me?
Not everybody has a mic?
We actually
We don't.
don't.
No, they have headsets,
Oh, they're special.
lapels.
You have mine.
We have an agenda. I want to move on.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's
any
move
other
on.
council
Yeah,
updates?
let's do it.
Any other council updates? If not, moving right along, tab A, governing body. Wow, that was loud. Item number 1 is approval of minutes of the November 13th, 2018 meeting. Hopefully y'all have had a chance to look at those, and if so, I would entertain a motion to approve or to amend.
Move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Unanimous. And then item number 2, I am proud to, as he comes up and makes his way up here, we have a new fire chief here in Carroll County, and he's no stranger to this city, nor is he a stranger to Carroll County. Tim Padgett is our new fire chief for Carroll County, and I have every reason to believe that he will do a fantastic job as he has with our emergency management services. So first of all, congratulations, Tim. Well earned, and I think you'll do a great job. And certainly not to be last, today is also his birthday. So,
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you for bumping us up on the agenda. I also want to say another thing too, is I believe it's December the 10th, which is on a Monday at 9 a.m. Let me make sure where I'm not telling you a story. On Monday at 9 a.m. on the 10th, we'll be putting a new 70-foot Sutphen ladder truck in service here in Villa Rica at Station 9. All y'all are welcome to come out to that little ceremony thing. We're very proud to have the ladder truck back. As y'all know, ours has been out of service, and this is something that hope will serve the citizens of the city of Villa Rica and the surrounding areas very good for the future. So they'll be doing training with it here in town next week. Have from some of the manufacturers representatives down training us, and then we'll do a week-long class, and then we'll put it in service next Monday.
thank you, Chief.
So I guess if it's okay with y'all, I'll turn it over to Janet, who's on kind of here to us.
Absolutely.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Oh, my goodness, I talk loud as it is, so this is awesome. I am here to present the proposal for the 2018 Gold Nugget Drop Fireworks.
Just
back
up
a little bit.
Just back up here.
Back up.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm telling y'all, I don't even really need this mic, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you do, but like 2 feet.
Back up.
We
Yeah.
need our ears.
Standing against the wall.
It's
So we were awarded 3 RFQs by 3 different companies, pyro shows out of Adamsville, Alabama, East Coast Pyrotechnics out of Kawaba, South Carolina, that's a stretch, and J&M Displays out of Dothan, Alabama. So the Main Street Advisory Board met Friday, November the 6th, reviewed all the bids, and unanimously voted to recommend Pyro Shows Company out of Adamsville, Alabama. So the staff is recommending the city to approve the Main Street Advisory Board's recommendation and award the 2018 Gold Nugget Fireworks bid to Pyro Shows in the amount of $4,000. This will give us a professional licensed pyrotechnical company to shoot the fireworks for the Nugget Drop. Questions?
Being no questions, I'll make a motion we accept the recommendation of the Main Street Advisory Board and award the 2018 Gold Drop Nugget Fireworks bid to Pyro Shows. What was the amount?
$4,000.
$4,000.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second? I have a motion seconded by Councilmember Marchman. Any discussion?
Who did we use last year?
East Coast Pyrotechnics. East Coast Pyrotechnics.
I thought we were doing a different,
Yeah, we're switching.
switching.
Talk about the site.
So recently, the Gold Nugget Tower has been condemned by a state structural engineer. So we're in the process of rebuilding it. It'll be the same look, just won't be painted. So in the process of that, we are in the process of moving the fireworks off the roof of the Avanti building for safety purposes. They were recently awarded money to fix the roof, and every time we shoot the fireworks off, it puts holes in the roof. Last year we had a fire incident. We had to call the fire department on the back side of the Avanti building. We don't feel like it's safe to be on top of the Avanti building. I think moving forward, we should try to look at another location. We have spotted another location. Jeff Reels is here from Pyro Shows. He can go into further detail. We did a in-depth logistical. So the property that we're discussing shooting the fireworks from, we've approached the owner, and he's going to get back to us, but we feel like it should not be a problem. The property's actually on the actual bid. It's behind the olive tree on Stone Street and that open field area. If you have technical questions or kind of want to know the scope, again, Jeff's here to answer any questions. Tim was actually with us that day when we did the logistical review. So if you guys have any questions specifically for them, please
Well,
let
right
us
now,
know.
you don't know
You
the
don't-
location. You got some proposed locations, but you don't know the, I
We have-
didn't know that that had been condemned. When did that happen? When, the tower back here?
When we get the letter, Bobby, 2 weeks ago? Yeah. Or so? We had a structural come out and take a look at it.
Okay, and it's going to be rebuilt?
Right.
Now, we put some funding in the budget for that. Am I correct? Yeah, you're all the way in the back.
I think we had a lot of money we were gonna put in and we took it out, but we can.
Did we
can
take
re-
it all out?
We can rebuild it for less than 10 grand.
We can?
Out of
Okay.
wood or out of metal?
Out of wood.
I have a motion and a second to approve the fireworks bid. Any further discussion? Not all in favor? Unanimous? Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim, thank you.
Thank y'all.
Tab B, finance. Sarah?
He's good. Tell him. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is our October, we hit F5.
Says October on it.
This is our October financial update. So this is our first month of our new fiscal year. We're still closing out our prior fiscal year, which ended September 30th. So we should have auditors, here in January or so to work on that. Do want to point out that we have all these financial updates on the website, as well as check registers. We put them out there monthly. And that does show each check that the city writes, how much it was, who the vendor was, and what the account is, if anybody's interested in that. And also wanted to point out, so at the end of each fiscal year, we have 6 months to report to the State Department of Accounts and Audits, or Audits and Accounts. And they review the audits that are done, and they send us a letter if any changes need to be done for that audit or in future years. And we got our letter this year for the 2017 audit, and there were no changes that need to be made. So I was proud of that. That was good for our team and for the auditors as well. It looks at not just us, but them as well. All right. So this is cash as of October 31st, comparing this year to last year. That first line is our total checking accounts, 6.9 million compared to now we have almost $8.4 million. Those top three are our main operating accounts where we're writing checks and taking money in. Our general fund, our water sewer fund, and our sanitation fund. You can see general fund's about the same. Water sewer, though, we have seen a huge increase there, 1 million to 2 million. Some of that is a transfer that we did at the end of 2017 to help with the debt payment. But the rest of it is due to our rate increases. We'll talk more about that in a minute. The next one is sanitation fund. So that shows a negative balance. Again, that doesn't mean we have a negative checking account anywhere. This is part of our pooled cash. So basically that's telling us that this fund owes cash to other funds. You can see there's been a significant decrease, but as we've talked about over the year, in 2017, at the end of that audit, our auditors told us we needed to write off that negative cash balance that we had. So then the loss of $35,000 that you see there, that has accumulated in the first 10 months of 2018. So that's where our next round of rate increases will help with that. And then lastly, those are our three SPLOST accounts. So we still have an active 08, 2015, and a 16. Next, this shows some of our growth with our building in the city. So since we've started a new fiscal year, we're kind of in a weird place where we had a 9-month year. So to compare to October 2017, that was 2 fiscal years ago. So instead of doing a year-to-date comparison like I've been doing, I may have to figure out this as we go, but this is just a month-to-month comparison for the last 2 Octobers. So from October of 2017 to now, you can see a huge increase in the number of building permits. This is new construction, so this doesn't count if people are remodeling and things. But we've gone from 9 new residential permits to 34 new residential permits. And we had one, it looks like we had 1 commercial at this time last year. And the water and sewer taps are in line with that. Next is water sewer. This is kind of an income statement, if you will. And again, since we've gone from, October 2017 was 2 fiscal years ago, so I'm not doing year-to-date like I have. This is just purely month-to-month. But you can see, if you look at that total revenue line, you can see how much we've grown there, almost $200,000. That's from our rate increases that have happened in 2018. And the expenses have stayed pretty consistent. Again, the big change is our revenue there because of the rate increases. So October 2017, we showed a loss that month, but in October 2018, we've had an income of $155,000. Sanitation, again, a little bit different because we're not showing year-to-date. This is just purely month-to-month. And if you look at that total revenue line from $62,000 to $92,000, that is our rate increases that have happened in 2018. So showed we broke even there for 2018. Just to point out some other things, our sales tax revenue is up from 2017 to 2018 by almost $20,000. That's just 1 month. That's great. Hotel revenue is up significantly, but we did have a rating, although 2017, the rate increase had taken into effect. So at the beginning of this year, we brought in the auditors to audit all of our hotels and motels in town, and they've helped us significantly there. So as of last week's email from the hotel tax auditors, they expect that we'll be bringing in about $300,000 every year for this year and hopefully next year as well. Water purchases, that's stayed consistent for these 2 months. Total number of employees is up from 141 to 158. Again, so this is looking different now than it has been over the past year or so. So self-funded, we've now been on for a year. So previously, I was showing you a comparison of what we used to pay out to United Healthcare to what we were paying out in claims and actual claims now. Well, I don't have a year ago, we were already on self-funded, so I don't have that comparison anymore. So now I'm going to show you in the orange, that is the contributions. So that is what the employees participate and the employer have given. So $137,000 between employer and employees was deposited into our self-funded bank account. And then the blue, that is the actual expense. So that's the administrative piece that we pay, and that is the actual claims to doctors and pharmacies there, $115,000. So in 1 month, we saved almost $23,000.
Do you keep a running total of the amount on the red? Do you keep a running total of how much we have?
Yes, I will. So we've started the new fiscal year. I can come back to y'all next time with what it had been so far on self-funded, if that's what you're asking for.
The
Running
Right.
total.
Okay.
Sure.
Let me stop you at this point and just, we have also another celebrity in the crowd back here, soon-to-be Commissioner, District 2 Commissioner Clint Chance is in the crowd back here. And I mention him at this time because I called Chairman Smith. Our city manager made a good point last week to me. He said, you should call Chairman Smith because we're doing so good on our health care that's something that the county may want to look at because that may kind of close that gap in the public safety sector where we were trying to get that money. So he is aware of that. So if you want to help carry that ball, I think it would be a good move on the county's part. So.
Yes. All right. Any questions on financial update?
Yeah, clarify something for me. When we're looking at sanitation, sanitation up where we still have that $35,000 deficit in the green, top left corner. Am I looking at the same thing?
Mm-hmm. You're right.
Okay, because I'm working off this. Okay. All right, but then you go down in the lower right, sanitation, solid waste, and compared to last year $20,000 deficit. Here we're to the plus, basically 1,900. So
Sure.
are we turning it around even with the fact that we haven't instituted all those new plans yet, and
We're getting there. So if you look back at the cash, which was the top left corner that you referred to, the negative $35,000, that is the loss we've taken in 2018. So in the 10 months of 2018, we've lost $35,000. So the other one that you pointed out, that is just one single month. So in October of 2018, yes, we did not lose money compared to the prior year, a loss
were
of
we
20,000.
losing every month last year?
Correct.
So something's good.
Oh, it's definitely improved. You
Yeah.
can see the revenue has increased.
Okay,
The
By
hole in the
50%.
bucket's gotten smaller.
Yes, the
Yeah.
bucket leak is getting smaller.
okay.
It's a drip.
There's more candy bar left.
Payday.
Y'all need the
Okay.
candy bars, don't you? All right.
That's all. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, item number 2.
My next item is a budget amendment. I just have one this time. It's for 2019. So at the end of 2017, the police received a Walmart grant for the purchase of medical bags. That was $2,000 deposited in our account in December of 2017. And they are now ready to purchase those medical bags. And so I need to do a budget amendment to increase the expense line for police supplies by 2,000, and that it'll be offset by the use of fund balance. So basically, that money that was received in 2017 rolled into the fund balance in the general fund since it didn't get used. So now we're pulling it out of the general fund balance.
And those medical bags are?
I believe to go in the cars.
No, I mean, they consist of, I'm assuming that when you have medical issues, gloves, what, I don't know. Oh, sorry. The medical bags consist of?
Different supplies that will help stop bleeding, things like that. Just, bandages, all that kind of stuff. That when we get to the scene first, we can treat before the ambulance or fire get there.
Okay. Protective things for the officers too, or is that something they already? Okay.
I make a motion to adopt the ordinance to approve an amendment to the budget for the fiscal year 2019 for the city pursuant to section 2-71 of the city charter.
Second.
A motion, multiple seconds. Any discussion? Not, all in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Tab C, Human Resources, Stephanie.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I have 3 items to present, the first of which is a proposal to change our carriers from various carriers, Davis Vision, Guardian Dental, to Mutual of Omaha. As you can see, the rate structures, if we do change to Mutual of Omaha for our vision, we get a 4.9% decrease in premiums, okay? Also, with the dental plan, the premiums go up slightly, but the maximum benefit goes from $1,000 to $2,000 per year per person, okay? I believe the vision plan is a direct mirror of what we have now. So you get, glasses every 2 years, lenses every year, exams every year for $10. So I would like to change from Davis Vision and Guardian to Mutual of Omaha. It makes it much easier administratively because, and also with American Fidelity, who our critical illness and accident policies are with now, change them to Mutual of Omaha as well. So those premiums are based on age and tier that you want to go up. You have several options. So the premium decrease will be an advantage to our employees, and the $2,000 maximum in their dental coverage is a big advantage. Because right now $1,000 does not go very far in the dental chair.
This may have been a slip of the tongue, but you said you believe that the benefits
No.
are the same for the vision?
I know the vision is a direct mirror of what we have now.
Okay, all right.
Questions?
No questions. I'll make a motion to approve the change in carriers from dental, vision, and voluntary critical illness and voluntary accident to Mutual of Omaha with the new premium structured as presented.
Have a motion, do I hear a second? Second. Have a motion second? Mr. Barber?
Tell them about the change in the tiers on the
Oh,
dental. I think.
remember dental used to be, you either have single coverage or family coverage. We have actually changed the structure so you have single, employee plus spouse, employee plus child, or family, to mirror everything else that we have. So that is also an advantage to those people who have just their spouse on their dental insurance that's paying the same thing that I am with a spouse and 2 children, so.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not all in favor? All opposed? Was that a yes vote? Okay. Unanimous. Okay. Item number 2.
Okay, the next item is a proposal for our new health care premiums for 2019. These premiums would become effective in January of 2019. We have examined what we are paying now. We believe it is actually too much. So if you look at the premium structure that you have, you see that the family and the single coverage did not change much, but there is a significant decrease in the employee plus child and employee plus spouse premiums. And then what I gave you tonight at the beginning of the meeting was a structure proposal. This is where we look at whether you're participating in the wellness plan or not. And if you're not, you get penalized, for lack of a better word. Your premiums are higher than those that do participate. And then if you are a tobacco user, your premiums then become higher as well. This sheet compares what we were paid last year in 2018 and what we are proposing this year in 2019. They are lower premiums than last year.
Now, this is in addition to the changes in the co-pays.
Yes, it is. The co-pays will go away for your primary care physicians in January of 19, and your specialist will go down to $15 in January of 19.
So we didn't get this prior,
No, you did not.
because I knew
I finished that at 5:30 this afternoon.
I knew I hadn't seen this. Our insurance, to me, from what I'm seeing, as we've gradually made changes, seems to be better and better for our employees in a number of ways. And so I just hope when we do our comparisons, our salary comparisons with everybody else, that we not only figure, oh, well, we give this benefit, but what does it actually cost the employee comparing ours to what they pay when they're working somewhere else?
Right.
That ought to play into factoring, the
The
salary
compensation
comparison.
package,
You get what I'm,
yes.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, we've talked about that before, and you were working up a way to be able to show the employees what their total benefits package looked
Right.
like. Are you
And
still working on that?
I do have a report that is in our payroll system that I can print out. It is a year-to-date report. I printed it out last year. I think it helped most people. So I can do that again for open enrollment, which is next Friday, next Wednesday, the 5th, from 10 to 4 in the
I
library.
think that would be
Yeah,
really good,
I
very
think that's
helpful.
good. You know, our employees know that they have good benefits, but they need to
Right.
know exactly
much
how.
is-
That is part of the compensation package,
It is.
so. Any other questions? Okay.
One thing to keep in mind about what we're doing now that's different than before is we did not control the relationship between single employee spouse, employee child, and family premiums when we were under a carrier. And now we do, and I think the challenge of that was almost beyond us. And we were trying to come up with a methodology that we could apply year to year. And so the reason that you've had that significant drop in those two is because we've established a philosophy that where that relationship is more based on what we're seeing in the claims experience. But it was only a year, so we may regret what we're recommending, because if the claim performance is, if this was a one-year fluke, you know, maybe we shouldn't have done what we're recommending, but we think we should, but we don't know, you know, because this is new for us. It's the first year. So just so you know that we're influenced by what actually happened.
This goes to your point that we switched at the right time because we were at a really good point to do that. But if trends are any indication, then, you know, it's not always going to be
If we
rosy.
settle to the average, then we got some harder years ahead.
But after 5 years, we should have a pretty good history of how it's going to go.
I appreciate you discussing that methodology, because when I first began looking at this, I thought we might be a little premature doing this, so I'm glad that there was sort of a method to the madness. But one of the reasons that I'm okay with it is because we are in charge of this system, and we can come back and look at it again if we need to do that. And the fact that we have the power to reach in and pick these variables out, to me, is really good for the city and for the employees. So.
Right.
There's another philosophy component to this that I'm getting clearer on as we work with Wendell, and that is we are on the we are right on the edge of what he's developing and selling to private businesses and cities and counties. And this is not a finished product. In fact, it's not a product, it's sort of an approach to insurance and medical coverage that's being developed even as we do this. And one of the things that he said to us today as we talked was that his clients are currently using 4 different third-party administrators. And what he's doing is looking for the perfect one, and there's not a perfect one. So all of them have different problems. So what we're experiencing on the back end of this, and especially Stephanie and the people that are using the plan, is we've gone from not having information and not having control to something that in some ways is worse, because now we do know more about what's happening and we have more control, but there's more responsibility on us and on Stephanie and on the third-party administrator when the doctor miscodes a charge or the hospital doesn't want to accept the payment that's offered, et cetera, et cetera. The things that are happening that y'all are hearing about. So this is not easy. It's not easy on the participant, I don't think. We've had a lot of people that have gone into collection where there's been a dispute, like with the hospital, especially over balance billing. We've had a problem where if the doctor doesn't code something as preventative, then instead of it being paid for 100% by the plan, the employee's getting billed for it, but knows they shouldn't be. So there's a frustration in that. So this is a work in progress, and even on Wendell's end, I don't know if y'all understand this, but we're moving out of the captive. So we're not going to be in a pool of stop-loss purchasers because the pool has had 2 bad years in a row. So they were going to go up like 20%. So we had such a great year, we went out independent and went down as opposed to going up 20. So there's a lot of things going right with this right now.
Well, on the surface, I see a lot of things going right, but in some ways, we may need to sit down again as a group and look at this, at insurance like we did a year ago, so we can understand, again, how we're pooling this risk. Because you mentioned some things that I don't think I was aware of recently.
Yeah, we're still buying the same stop loss, but we're buying it independent of anybody else. But we bought better stop loss. And it went down. But it's because what we walked into that negotiation with was a killer.
Yeah.
And here's the number. When they give us the spreadsheet that we base all this on, there's an expected liability or claims experience per person and a maximum. And what we're setting our rates on is 90% of the maximum. But what we experienced was 40.
So that's how we get to do this.
So in 18, the first year, we experienced 40% of the claims that the actuary expected. 40%.
Yeah,
When I'm telling y'all that we had a good year, we had a great year. We had a fantastic claims experience. But part of it is we were picking the low-hanging fruit, which was the pharmacy. That's where the big savings were initially. So I want you to enjoy the benefit of this and take credit for it, because y'all did something really scary when we went into this. And David can tell you, he shared the fear when we
scary.
jumped into all those contracts.
It's still scary to me. And so you talked about, because I have some personal experience with this, you talked about some of the struggles with the coding and how the billing is being paid, and you've got some folks in collection. What are you doing to address that? Are we doing all of that in-house? Is Wendell being a part of that?
Goes back to the TPA. And
Some of it does go back to the TPA. If it's coded wrong, it deals with a physician, not a facility, but a physician, it goes back to HealthScope. If it is dealing with a facility, a hospital, or other facility, it goes to our reference-based pricing
Yeah,
that
consultant.
reference-based pricing vendor. Okay. So far, with all the claims that I have sent to HST, it is, the hospital has always acquiesced and taken the payment that we've offered initially.
But it
that
takes
sounds like
time.
that's time consuming too. And my concern
6
too is when you
months
talk about the
sometimes.
40%, I wonder how much of the, because I've been in your office, I saw the stack that you have. How much of that, once that is all figured in, will we still be looking at? I mean, is that a significant? Do you have any way of knowing if that will be a larger impact? Once those are processed out?
It should not have a larger impact than has already been paid. If anything, it'll have a lower impact on
Okay.
our,
Just a matter of
bank account.
resolving those.
yes.
Okay. I'm all in favor of continuing with this, but it is scary because this is a lot of risk that we're taking on. And the methodology that you've used to determine that these these premiums can change, I'm confident that you're looking at that and you're understanding the risks, so.
Well, the risk was related to the fact that where we were going was intolerable. The rates that were going up, we could not sustain and do that. And they say necessity is the mother of all inventions. Sometimes that's what it takes. Things aren't going well, and you find a new way to do it. And the pioneers usually have to pay the biggest price, right? Because they have to lay the road for everybody coming after them. So I kind of see us as one of those pioneers that's out there we're probably like the guinea pig with others, and we're benefiting from it, but we're also getting the pain in the neck things as we try to figure out how this all works. I had just, if you could in some sort of brief nutshell, explain when it's like health with wellness, no tobacco. Health without wellness, no tobacco. Health with wellness, tobacco use. Because you do get rewarded if you're doing the wellness, and in some sort of brief way, what does that mean? Obviously, you are in some way addressing your health issues. You're participating in helping. How would
Right.
you explain that briefly?
Last year, it was, if you went through the health screenings that we had here that day and had your blood drawn, that was participating in the wellness plan, okay? This year, we've added some things to it.
We'll bring that
We're,
back
we're
and have
thinking about
council
adding
decide
some
on
things,
it.
but we'll bring that back before we do it. Additional requirements this year. Tobacco use is, any tobacco use.
Right, and
And-
you're gonna pay a little bit more because almost everybody with tobacco, you have associated other health
Other
issues
Right.
that are.
What's the, on this column of percentages here? What is that number?
That is the percentage that we use to figure the premiums. It is the percentage of the change.
Not the
Um,
first one, the others are.
Right. On the second through the fourth one, those percentages changed because what we did was, we,
Start at the first one, tell them how we got the first one.
okay. Let me see.
Cause it's 5 and then, what, 30?
Yeah,
5
30.
and 30.
Right, so the first one is the percentage that the employee pays of the total cost. But the other 3 are the punitive impact of not participating or using tobacco or both. So as you
But
go
actually,
up, it gets worse.
in
Yeah,
the
this
first one,
sounds-
you see the 30%.
That's
That
all in the
is,
same group,
you
though.
take
Yeah, so that times
the
that,
30% of
and
the
that times that, and
difference
that. So this is what
between,
people are paying if they
the spouse,
don't
say
do the
employee plus
wellness
spouse,
program.
okay?
Instead of paying this.
you take
Pay 14%.
They pay that,
the 634,
that.
subtract it from the
and then this gets
1205,
worse,
multiply
and
it
that
by
gets worse.
30%,
So if you
and
don't
then add the
participate, you can't use
1586 to
tobacco,
it,
you get
and then
burdened.
that's your premium,
Should.
if that makes any sense
What can
whatsoever.
I say?
So before last year, though, the employee was at 0. That's why this is
Right.
at 5%.
Actually, mid-year last year, we changed it to 5%, and it came out to $17.52.
Either way you slice it, these are significant. There are decreases all across, but the 2 that you pointed to were significant.
Yes.
I make a motion that we approve the 2019 health insurance premiums as presented.
Second.
Have a motion second. Any further discussion? Not, all in favor? It is unanimous. Item number 3.
Our reference-based pricing vendor, that will become effective in January of 2019, has proposed a change in the way that they want to bill us, that is to our advantage. Currently, in the service agreement, it states that they will get 18% of the savings that are generated from their negotiations with hospitals and doctors. Currently, they want to change it to 10% of the total billed. Okay, it actually is an advantage to us because it will eventually be less money that we have to pay them. If you look,
It's something.
Because it really shouldn't
It's
be
something
better.
Wendell recommended for all the clients that are doing what we're doing.
Well, if we pay 18% of the savings, that incentivizes them to increase the savings.
But it's way more
It's
than
way
10%,
more.
like
Well,
way
so
more
then
than.
we get to that part, but the second piece is now we're just gonna pay them 10% of whatever the claims are. Did I
I don't-
understand that correctly?
yes, you do.
Yes.
And you're saying that ultimately ends up being less cost to the city?
Yes.
It should be in the first year. And if not, hey, it's like I said, this is one step at a time, try it, do the best thing that we see that we can do, and if it works, great, we keep on going and big dumb smile on our face.
If it don't work,
And if it
change it.
doesn't work, then we're gonna change it, just like we changed in the stop loss, and we changed the reference-based pricing provider,
So did we recommend this, or did Wendell?
Wendell did. He's recommending it to
Well,
all
most
of his
everything Wendell
customers.
has recommended, and we've
Yes.
gone along with it. It's been,
Yes.
and I don't mind going along with it, but it doesn't sound like it would work that way. But I'm willing to
And
look
it may
at it.
not in the long run, for the very concern that you have is what's in it for them?
What is in it for them? They're
Well, that's
not
why I
Well,
asked
negotiating
you
the
to
big.
initiate.
What's in it for them is they get renewed the next year because they did a good job.
They just want us to bill higher. the higher we build in, the better they get paid, but I'm willing to look at it. He's been right so far. It's been a good.
Yep.
We're in the insurance business.
Well, we don't. I make a motion that the amendment to the reference-based pricing vendor service agreement is approved as presented. New fees will be effective January 1, 2019.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Tab D, Community Development. Denise?
Your microphone. Good evening, Lenice Lyons, Planning and Zoning Specialist for the City of Villa Rica. I have a couple of items, well, a few items tonight. The first is recommending reappointments to the Historic Preservation Commission. So we're recommending, well, at their meeting last week, spoke with our commissioners regarding their reappointments and informed them my recommendation would be for Dr. Nancy Mims, Larry Coors, and Renee Hooks to serve, to be reappointed for a term of 3 years. Previously, Dr. Mims, Mr. Coors, and Ms. Hooks all replaced someone that vacated a seat on the commission. I know Dr. Mims and Mr. Coors have served for about the past year, year and a half, and Ms. Hooks was appointed in April of this year. And Dr. Mims certainly currently serves as the chairman of the commission. Per the HBC bylaws, while we're having 3 appointments coming at the same time, and Kim Poor, who was here earlier, is on our commission, and she will be coming to you in January for reappointment. Her term expires in February. To achieve the staggered terms, it should have been 1 member for 1 year and 2 members for 2 years. And then with the update, we're at 3 members for 3 years. Some kind of way we ended up where 3 people expire on the same day. So as Dr. Mims and Larry and Renee have served, I've been dealing with them since I started a year ago. My recommendation would be to just keep the board consistent and go with a 3-year appointment for all 3. That's staff recommendation.
So the reason we're doing this is so that we can stagger the terms according to the bylaws.
Well, currently they're not staggered,
Yeah, what she's recommending doesn't actually stagger it, and I think that's a problem we have because we've made a point on all our boards to have them staggered so you don't have all your senior experienced people or whatever. You don't have, even if they weren't all extremely experienced, you don't want your whole board turning over. And so in order to keep consistency and maybe even some institutional knowledge where it can't have the possibility of all changing at once, we need to do something tonight that would allow somebody to be, people to be 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, and split it up. Do you have a recommendation?
I took a look at that also, and the way that the board is set up right now, the Historic Preservation Commission, is not how it was intended to be, because you've got everybody lumped together so that everybody comes on at the same time, everybody goes off at the same time. I think now is a golden opportunity to get back to what it was intended to be and stagger the 3 appointments tonight, 1 for a 1-year term, 1 for a 2-year term, and 1 for a 3-year term, and that will get you back on track as how this was intended to be. So, I mean, that's my recommendation, that you set up a 1, 2, and a 3-year term, that you figure out a way to pick these people to be on that. I don't know whether you do it just alphabetically is a good nondescript way to do it, to get them appointed.
Well,
That'd be a good idea.
Historic Preservation Committee full right now?
Right now, we have 4 of 6 members. 1 seat was vacated via resignation, and as I believe October, you all approved the commission to go up to 6 members. So now we have 4 of 6 members serving, and we currently have 2 new seats that are open for new appointments.
And we have 1 that will expire in January?
That's correct. Well, it expires in February, so it'll come to you all in January for reappointment.
Do you have other applicants for this?
We have, the next item is 2 appointments for 2 new members.
And then it'll
For
be
the
full.
historic preservation.
That's right.
So, I guess what I was thinking is that, along with what David said, maybe we just take these 3 recommendations, make one of them a 1, one of them a 2, and one of them a 3.
And if we do it alphabetically, then it doesn't, it's
Is
just,
that what you recommended, David?
Yes.
Because it
Makes it
appears to
okay.
me that the bylaws intended, although this council's also been trying to do it, but it intended these terms to be staggered anyway. So I'm in favor of doing that, if we need to make an amendment to change that tonight, or if anybody wants to table it.
okay, well, then, if we do it alphabetically. Okay, if we do it alphabetically, then we would, I would propose that we, Nancy Mims, the chairman, 3-year, Renee Hooks, 2-year, and Larry Coors, the 1-year. And then we have 2 more to address after we get past this part. And then we'll have another one in January, and then we'll have all 6 people on there, and everybody will be naturally staggered then.
Would you like to make that into a
Yeah,
motion?
I would make a motion that, in order to set up the stagger of appointments to the Historic Preservation Committee, that we put Dr. Nancy Mims on a 3-year term, Renee Hooks on a 2-year term, and Larry Coors on a 1-year term.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
So this means that, say for Larry Cruz, the 1 year, after that 1 year, he can reapply? or
He's subject
he's
to being
subject to be
reappointed
Oh,
And it would be a 3-year reappointment at that time.
at that time.
oh,
This is just to get them staggered.
oh, okay. I just wanted to make it clear.
Any further discussion? Not all in favor? Unanimous. Item number 2.
Okay, the next item is to consider 2 new members, 2 new member appointments to the Historic Preservation Commission. The first, I believe you have, is Alan White. Alan White is a resident of Villa Rica, 323 Thomas Dorsey, or 372 Thomas Dorsey, sorry. He's a home renovator, all-in-one renovations. He likes to serve on the board to help protect and preserve historical sites and structures in the city, in particular to the businesses and residences. At last week's HPC meeting, the commission voted to nominate Mr. White for a 2-year term. To appoint him for a 2-year term.
How does this affect the
How's that playing?
decision we just made?
That will have 2 people on a 2-year term. You're going to have, at the appointment in January, you'll have, by the time that rolls around, you're going to have 2 people on a 3-year term. And so I don't know what the proposal is for the next one after Mr. White, but that would make sense to have that a 1-year term also.
Okay, well, we'll have to keep that in mind as we make
Right.
these appointments. They're coming up really fast.
Right.
And it's the staggering, the 1, the 2, the 3 is for initial appointments. I think you have some more discretion after someone's, so Alan White and Ken Norton would be initial appointments. And that's where you have to stand in the 1 person, 1 year, 2 year, 2 people, 2 person.
Well, at some point, they begin to roll staggered automatically.
And everybody's
And
3,
people
they're
may-
just 3 at different times.
If
Right.
someone
Yeah.
resigns, a person is appointed to finish that term so that the terms remain
Staggered,
fixed
right.
after
Right.
that.
That's what we need to do better when we
Yeah.
have resignations.
So what is the you recommended Mr. White for a 2-year term. What's the recommendation for Mr. Norton?
The same, 2 year, because you can do two, as initial appointments, 2 people, 2 years. That was the way I.
Want that
Okay.
for
Well,
today?
look out.
We
Yeah.
just made one
It
It needs to be either a 1 or a 3 on the second guy.
Okay.
Just doing it alphabetically like we did the last one, it makes sense to have Mr. White as a 2-year appointment, Mr. Norton as a 1-year appointment.
I think so.
Okay.
And then Kim's reappointment would be 3
Oh, that was
Correct,
two.
when it rolls
in
around, yes.
January or February.
Okay.
We ready for a motion?
Yep.
But you may have to remind me of the year, because my head is starting to spin now. I make a motion to approve how many years is alphabetically? We're doing-
Two-year
a
term for
okay,
Mr.
so
White.
this one is 2-year for Mr. Alan White to the Historic Preservation Commission.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Unanimous?
Okay.
What
So,
about
the last,
And are you gonna do
There's
Mr.
another guy.
Norton's
You need to do
appointment?
Mr. Norton.
yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody needs to make that motion.
Mr. Norton is a
That's for a
project
one-year
manager.
term.
Yep. And he's committed to historic preservation of our city. And he lives in a Queen Anne Victorian constructed in 1900.
You gonna make that motion too, Leslie?
In Ward 3. Oh, yes, sure. You ready? All right. I make a motion to approve the 1-year appointment of Ken Norton to the Historic Preservation Commission.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Unanimous.
Okay.
Thank you,
All right.
ma'am. Item number 3.
Number 3 is the conditional use permit request of Joseph Ludman of Carrollton, Georgia, requesting a conditional use permit for property located at 15001 Veterans Memorial Highway in Florence Circle. Parcel number 0145-025-0004 and 0145-025-0007 in land lot 145 of the 25th District of Douglas County for the purpose of temporary storage of vehicles. The properties consist of 1.09 plus or minus acres and are located in Ward 1. Mr. Lumens is requesting a conditional use permit for these 2 parcels for the purpose of storage of vehicles as the operator of an automobile repossession business. And reviewing this application, and then reviewing the site, it was previously used as a insurance agent's office along Highway, Veterans Memorial, Highway 78. So there's a 1-story structure there. There is some paving in the front. Right off the highway, Florence Circle is immediately behind it. It's a narrow 1-lane road. All the properties in the immediate vicinity are industrially zoned, but not industrially used. Everything on Florence Circle is residential. And as Florence Circle is a 1-lane road, it's very tiny, kind of narrow. So that's some of the things staff looked at when making recommendations. Our recommendation is approval with conditions. I've listed 8 conditions. The first is to combine the parcels into one property. Because the Florence Circle one does not have an address. Put them as one will give it one definite address for the entire subject properties. Access to the parcel should be restricted to Veterans Memorial Highway. As I just talked about, the 1-lane narrow Florence Circle. The nature of the business is going to be commercial trucks, and that road is not appropriate to be traversed by anything commercial. The applicant should provide hours and manner of operation to the Community Development Department, provide the number of employees for all shifts, and a 24-hour emergency contact. So if there's an incident that the police need to know about or we need to contact someone, we'll have that information. Screening of the property with an 8-foot fence, which shall be opaque. This is standard language in the ordinance for businesses of this type. Maintain a 10-foot undisturbed vegetative buffer in the rear of the property along Florence Circle. And that's to mitigate any kind of intrusion of light, noise, sound, air, light between the existing residential uses, which have been there a really long time, and this use of more intense use of that's in an industrial in nature. Staff would like for him to complete the improvements prior to occupancy. Conditional use permit shall be valid from the date of council adoption as long as Mr. Ludman is the owner operator. and the conditional use permit is not transferable. The last two conditions are to ensure that as the city grows and changes, have an opportunity to look at every business owner that wants to do something like this and not carry on something that, or have a process in place that one person had to do and no one else had to do following him.
And that's why it's not transferable.
That's correct, yes, ma'am. With that, that's staff recommendation. It was approved with these same conditions on November 6th by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And Mr. Ludeman is here to speak on behalf of his application.
What was the vote by planning and zoning?
Unanimous.
Okay, thank
Any
you.
questions of staff before we ask the applicant to come up? Okay, with it.
Well, I can get to them.
Isn't that pretty dangerous coming out into Western Highway from, you got a narrow street there, no being, cause when something put there close to that once before and they had a few accidents with those trucks coming out of that?
That I'm not aware of. I know, I think I included a few emails from a constituent that was concerned about things like that, about speeding along that corridor. Some of the feedback we got about the case was regarding speeding along 78 and Veterans Memorial, the trucks coming up and down, and how this business would affect that. The controls, well, the conditions put in place would limit that access to Veterans Memorial, ingress and egress from there. And the way to me, the site is set up is pretty deep, like where the driveway is and where the building is pretty deep. So coming off of there, turning with a vehicle attached to you, the driver should exercise a great amount of care and discretion, but there is space where he's not jammed up on the front of the site trying to back in. It's wide enough to, I think, to accommodate his vehicle and the vehicles he may be carrying.
And also, you know, we got this over there on Common Road where it's supposed to be a fence or buffer or whatever. And you got 1, 2, 3 little poles that's been there for like 2 or 3 months. And then it's not, so is there a stipulation that this would be done in a amount of time instead of looking like, and you know, it's supposed to be in the back and then it's all almost on the street and
Right.
people are complaining. So this is not gonna be another one of those.
That's the intent. Condition 6 says all improvements to be installed prior to occupancy. So, in staff's mind, that means before we would issue his business license, certificate of occupancy, or anything, we want to see all the improvements, the buffer maintained and measured and installed, the fence being up prior to us issuing him a permit to start running that business there. And the hope is that we avoid as much as we can on the front end having something undesirable or aesthetically displeasing along our major commercial corridors. So that was the thinking. Ms. Harden is here as well. If you've seen the emails I've included, that's who sent the email. So we have.
Do we set a time for?
Yeah,
We
there'll
can-
be
we can
public
do that.
comment
Yeah.
on the application.
Okay.
Before we do public comments, would the applicant come forward and
I do have a question. Do I have a chance to rebuttal after, or is it a one-time thing?
you need to say what you need to say.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I guess specifically, I'll be speaking with Ms. Marchman because this is in her district. This is a picture of the proposed fence idea, which is gonna be a little different than, most places. Ms. Marchman brought up Connor Road there. You have ordinances in places to protect you against that, so that slipped between the cracks somewhere, along with a lot of other people that has gave us bad names. So, with that being said, I think that could have been prevented had somebody paid attention. But yet, you're right, there's been a few sticks there for several months now. Here is a picture of, just a generic picture of one of our trucks. They're not semis, they're not massive trucks. You're gonna probably be brought up with a couple of issues, of maybe the lot not big enough. I operate this business now since 2004 out of my home. We've grown. I occupy a quarter acre of the 23 acres I have. That's what our lot is. So this is going to be, in sense, 4 times the size of what I have now. So, also, you're gonna have, water issues. I'm gonna get a topo of the property for my advantage to litigate any lawsuit later, proving that I'm not adding water to a specific lot or anything like that. And as far as the water issue goes, I won't deny that there isn't a water issue there because somebody chose to build a house on lowland. I can help alleviate that. I can do the work myself, under the instruction of the city, but I don't think it's my responsibility to financially support that. So basically, I could do the work, provide the land to fix the issue, but I'm not gonna pay for the material, because it's really not my problem. I'm buying the land with that problem already, and it's not the land's problem, it's the adjacent land's problem. So, as a neighbor, I don't mind helping, basically, but I've talked to, Mr. Fowler, and as far as his knowledge, it's not my responsibility. But as a neighbor, I don't mind doing that. And then the next thing is, you know, we've been a family-operated business, and we're just growing, and we don't have any semis. Somebody's gonna tell you that we can't dictate who comes and who does not come, but I assure you daily, I dictate who comes and who does not come to my property. And, we don't allow semis. You come with a rollback. We don't allow people to drive off the lot either. So, I'm not sure if there's any unanswered questions, but I don't have a problem with the 10-foot buffer zone. I would like to specifically know where that 10 foot's going to start and where it's gonna stop. And then the other thing is I would love, not necessarily to have to, but I would love if something happened to me, my family members would have a grace period of, 6 months, 5 months, 4 months, something. Just saying, hey, they're not gonna be burying me and then kicking them out the door because they don't have a conditional use permit. And I fully support the idea of they need to get a conditional use permit, because I understand why. I've seen a lot of lots that store vehicles that look really bad. So I do understand that. I just don't want them to be basically burying me and you telling them, hey, you gotta do something.
Any questions of the applicant?
So-
Oh, sorry.
Who is Mr. Fowler?
Mr. Fowler's our attorney in Douglasville.
Okay, so you don't own this property,
No, I have it under contract.
you have it under contract.
The owner, I think the owner's here, right?
I don't, so you're asking for this conditional use permit prior to
Purchase.
owning the property?
Correct.
You passed around some images of some fencing. Do you intend to use that type of
Yes, sir.
fencing? And we could make that part of the staff conditions?
You could, but it's already an ordinance. It has to be opaque, which,
You've driven around our town.
hey, I agree with you. There's several places and it's supposed to go by the same ordinances as being imposed by me, and they have a mesh screen, which is not in the ordinance.
We're
So-
fully aware.
Yeah.
So when we talk about vehicles being parked there or located there for a temporary time
Yes, sir.
period, what are you talking about? What is temporary to you?
Temporary to me is 5 to 10 days.
So a vehicle would not be on that property for more than 10 days. I guess your business is you repo vehicles.
Right.
You drag them to this lot. You're going to put them back behind this fencing where they're not an eyesore.
Correct.
And then those vehicles would only be with you for 10 days at a
Give or-
max.
Give or take a few days. I don't physically transport them out. A rollback will come in under my client's
Right, the
direction.
bank or whoever the lien holder
Correct.
was, or whoever hired you.
And what sets me apart than, say, any towing company that's doing accident towings is I already have somebody that wants my vehicles. when you do accident towings and different kind of towings, abandoned vehicle towings and stuff, you have to find somebody that is willing to take that vehicle at a price. And so I'm not gonna guarantee that it's 10 days, but on an average, it's 10 days. On an average, it's less than that, but 10 days is a good average for it.
So I guess what I'm trying to do is understand exactly what you want to do so that if I can find a way to get to yes on this, I want to know that when I tell the public or whoever asks me, if it turns into a junkyard, that this is what I asked, this is what I required, this is what we're going to go back and look and see what we required of them, and that allows us to then hold you accountable to that.
Right.
If you intend to do that anyway, it's not a problem. I just want some parameters for it. So you would say 14 days maybe. A vehicle wouldn't be there more than 14 days.
Max?
On an average, I mean, I can't give you a max. I mean, sometimes on a rare occasion, they do get there 20, 25 days, but it's very rare because after 10 days, they have to pay me to store that vehicle there. And obviously, I mean, you know how the business world works. You're not going to pay somebody to do something where you're just not going to pay them to store it there because it costs you more money.
And you don't bring wrecked vehicles in. These are only
On
repoed
a
vehicles.
very rare occurrence, but if we bring a wrecked vehicle in, it'll be basically a minor fender damage, bumper falling off. It's not gonna be airbags deployed, total destruction. It's gonna be, bumper falling off and the client still wants the vehicle.
So do you do any repairs at
No.
this facility?
We do, well, only on my own stuff, because it seems like I have to become a mechanic most of the time, just to stay in business, but not on anybody else's equipment.
You can understand why we would like to see a max, because if things hang on, you got a junkyard.
I do understand that. I understand that 100%. But I can't sit here and tell you that I have control over that, because I do not. But I could just tell you since 2004 what the average is. That's all I can tell you, because I don't call a transporter up and say, hey, come get this car, it's ready to be released. My client does that for me. But I can tell you after 10 days, I start charging storage, and clients don't like that too much.
It's reasonable.
What if they just tell you to keep the car and they're not gonna pay you? I mean, you're stuck with the car.
Oh, that don't happen.
That don't
Yeah,
happen?
No. Since 2004, that's never happened to me. So if you run into that problem, it's going to be a buy here, pay here lot, or maybe a third tier company. The companies I currently do work for are Ford Motor Credit Company, GM, Ally, Santander, Capital One, Chrysler Capital, and people like that. Back in 2004 when we started, we was doing buy here, pay here's and stuff like that. And it wasn't a big deal because we typically took those vehicles to them already. And that's when we ran into, well, we're not paying you for that repo, and we don't want the car kind of thing. So we kind of, obviously financially, we don't get paid. That don't make any sense for anybody. So we kind of went away from doing work for those kind of people.
So when if I ask you the hours and manner of business operation, what would be your answer? Do you know that yet?
24 hours.
It's 24 hours.
Yeah, because
So-
half the time repos are done in the middle of the night, right?
90% of the time.
The
repo-
idea is
the
to
wa-
not have a confrontation,
The
right?
way the laws have made it, the idea is to not have confrontation. So I'd assume personally, before 2010, I'd assume do it during the day and allow the people the opportunity to get their property. The major traffic that you're gonna have at this location is going to be transporters coming to get cars to take them to the auction, and people coming to get their property from the vehicles.
How many vehicles would you say you repo in a month's time?
Say 60.
Go ahead.
Is it Ludman, Ludman?
Ludeman.
Ludman, okay, Mr. Ludman. So overall, you are pretty comfortable with the staff recommendations, other than you want to make sure if something happened to you, that the next day they're not saying there's a problem with your family, they don't have the conditional.
I mean, I would like to
use,
think
so.
that somebody wouldn't do that anyways, but
Okay.
that would be my major concern. And if I sold the business, then that would be one thing. But
Right,
if-
because
if
then-
during my passing, because obviously there's some inherent risk at what I do, during my passing, you know, I don't want it to become an issue.
Okay, well, I'm just glad to hear that only because I think the opaque fence, all that's really important. I did drive over there today. I looked at, you know, the trees behind it. I had not been on that road, so I had to drive over to the circle. I hadn't seen it. I saw how narrow it was. And that if I were living back there and I were a citizen, you know, in my residential area, I would want that buffer, you know, between the business and between 78, because who wants to look at the highway either? So I think that's real important. That's all I had.
Well, the other thing is that fence is gonna, according to the ordinances, that fence has to be 8 foot tall. So,
Okay.
and I'm not sure if the sticks over there are 8 foot tall.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir. You can be seated.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll open it up for public comments. Anyone wishing to give public comments, either for or against this, please do so at this time. State your name and address for the record, and please limit your remarks to 3 minutes.
It's a little strange because I'm Janet Harding, and I actually ran the repossession company that has a business license there now.
What's your
but
address,
I
ma'am?
retired.
Could you just tell us your-
Post Office Box 392 in Winston, Georgia.
Okay.
And I am the business manager for the person that owns the property now, which is Danielle Wallace, who lives half of the year in Tennessee, and she's in Tennessee. So I'm not very good at public speaking. Actually, I know Alyssa, she used to work at the bank that I did repossessions for, the Bank of North Georgia. So I've actually been in the repossession business, or before I retired in 2012, since 1986. I repossess probably between 100 to 150 cars a month on the property next to it that he's talking about has a water problem. That home was built in 1940. So if it had a water problem, you know, how's the house still standing there? Where the property that's, the only commercial property that's next to his property is the property I'm representing. And I've been in touch with the DOT. The DOT assured me, because Mr. Mecklin was the attorney, with Joe Fowler was my attorney. I don't know why he's talking to Joe Fowler, because Joe doesn't represent me, because I don't own the property anymore. I'm the manager for Miss Wallace, who doesn't have an attorney right now. So, but we just have been in touch with Mr. Johnson with the DOT about the water issue, because the water comes off 78. Because if you're going toward Douglasville on 78, you're going down a hill. And for some reason, the water started coming across the property that he's going to purchase, all the way back to the fence, because our fence is behind our, well, I call them a house, but it's an office. They're old houses that were built in the 40s. And it collects there when it rains a lot. So the DOT's recently been out there, and he said that he recommends environmental impact study with a survey, I guess, and a stormwater outtake and soil erosion control study on the property if he takes out all the trees. Because over half of that acre that he's going to buy is trees. So sort of, you know, I wouldn't want to go to the expense of taking out all those trees, putting up the fence. Fence is expensive. Putting gravel on it or pave. I don't think he's going to pave it. He probably put gravel like I did, because I put tons and tons of gravel on that property. The whole back of the property is got a layer of gravel so you can drive on it, although now it looks like it's grass. It's not. It's just because no cars have been driving on it. And to educate you on the repossession business, you don't have any control because the cars belong to the client. So if they decide to send an 18-wheeler, which they do, you have to accommodate them. And the way we used to accommodate them back then, because the repossession business has changed, That's the reason I retired in 2012, because now you really don't get to charge storage for cars. Your client controls you, basically. They tell you, most of the time, the big companies like I work for, I didn't work for Buy Here, Pay Here ever. From the time that I went into business until I retired, I never worked for a Buy Here, Pay Here or a Title Pond or any of those companies. I worked for Bank of America, I worked for Bank of North Georgia, I worked for all the banks, I worked for Household Finance, all the big companies. And I've got pictures, aerial views of my storage lot with cars on it. And like I said, I did 100 to 150 a month. I had 4 trucks.
Just so I can understand, are you in opposition to this?
Yes, I'm in opposition because of I want them to require him to do all the stormwater and all that if they take down all those trees, because it's gonna cost more water. I'm already having a water issue, or Miss Wallace is. And it's gonna cost more water there. Plus the fact, well, at first I understood he wanted to go out onto Florence, but now they've stopped that. So he's not gonna be able to go out on Florence because we were never allowed to, because it is a 1-lane road. And all those houses back there, which are 4, are renters living in the homes. The owners, I don't believe, live in any of those houses. They're all renters.
Any council questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to come forward and speak for or against this, please do so at this time.
There was something else I wanted to say.
Okay, seeing none, we will close the public comments portion of the meeting, and it will revert back to the council for a decision.
Well, I would like to hear a little bit about this water issue from Lenise or Bobby or somebody from staff, if there is a water issue.
Good evening, members of council. Less than 1 acre of land disturbance, he is not required to do stormwater improvements. So I think the tract combined is 1.009 acres or something like that. Unless he's going to put some kind of structure on those lots that breaches the 5,000 square feet of impervious surface, he's not required to do any stormwater improvements to that lot. And that's not to say he can't address a problem that may be existing. But
Did
he's
you
not gonna
say
be
less
required.
than 1 acre?
Less than 1 acre, erosion sediment control requirements are not required by law. Now, he's required to, during construction, to keep sediment on his site and not leave the site. But he's not required by law to do that.
There is looks like a house on that lot that we're talking about.
The office, on the front office building?
He didn't furnish us with any kind of a concept plan or a intent on what he's planning on doing. He's trying to get a conditional use before he purchased the property.
I understand that. My concern is that I don't think we know enough about this to give a conditional use that is perpetual, forever.
A survey with topo would certainly tell a lot in addressing what we're talking about right now. We don't have that.
Bobby, have we had any discussions with GDOT, or have you confirmed what the?
No, sir, I have not.
I can speak to a little bit to the past experience that the city has had in this area with water, because it was Ms. Mullinex at that time, I believe. Ms. Mullinex brought a claim against the city, saying that the city was flooding her property and causing damage to us, asserting that the city was causing that. And we went through a prolonged period of time with the claim being made against the city. And, eventually it was the city's position that if there was a problem, it was caused by the DOT, because there had been some changes to the road system on Highway 78 back 10 years or so ago that did cause some water issues on Ms. Mullinex's property. But I don't believe there was no attribution to the lot that this gentleman was buying that was causing any water issues. And I believe that the DOT did come out there and remedy the issue that was caused back at that time that was causing the water issue to Ms. Mullinex's property.
However, it sounds like there may still be a water issue, but it may be separate from that. Do you know anything about a current issue?
No, nobody has raised any current issue regarding any water. And I don't know that there is anything that, again, that has transpired on this particular lot that would have changed. I mean, certainly, no property owner can develop their property in such a way that they are diverting water from their property onto somebody else. And he'd be prohibited from doing that just under general law. If he harms any next door neighbors, he's gonna get sued over that.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion if we're ready.
Well, I'm not.
Well, I'm not
I
either.
wanna make a comment. Bobby, I almost sensed in your voice that you would feel more comfortable if there was a topo.
That is certainly a condition that the mayor and council can add prior to moving forward.
Well, I'm asking you your opinion.
Yes, sir, I would feel more comfortable having something up front, on the front end.
And let me ask you this. I just want to ask you, I know that your part's closed, but when do you need to close on this property? The concern is I would like to have that as well, certainly since staff would
Well, you know,
recommend it.
without a survey, you can't really tell what the 10-foot buffer of trees needs to be left.
Right.
You gotta measure from somewhere. And the property it's got some age on it with some history, and corner pins obviously probably are not locatable for him to be able to certify the 10-foot buffer requirement, if that's what the council wants to do.
One thing I think I never want to do is be too onerous. I've heard that word used a lot lately. But I think this may be premature. I would like to have some of these recommendations tightened up a little bit, and I would like to have this survey. What time frame would we be looking at on something like that?
The survey at this point what would the survey be for? Just so that Mr. Ludeman understands, if he gets it surveyed and there's some topo.
Well, look at Bobby, he's the one that brought it up.
Well,
When we talked about the structure being there, when we talked about the setbacks on the property, when we talked about the trees,
Right.
well, I think it would show that.
It would, but one of the conditions is that we combine the lots before we do anything. So combining the lots, he's gotta get a survey.
He's gotta
for
get a
that
survey
regardless.
for that anyway.
For that, and then
That
that's
doesn't-
something that we can add to it, that there's a tree survey included, so he'll understand where his 10-foot buffer will be.
But then we won't know. We will have already done it.
But he doesn't,
We will have already approved it.
he doesn't, not required to get a topo survey for that.
That's correct. Just a boundary survey would combine those two, not the topo.
For legal purposes, I plan on getting a topo. But I also don't want to pay for a topo if it's not my property.
I was wondering what the cost was in on that, because I think that needs to be taken into consideration.
Other questions?
I'd be willing to look at this, I'd be willing to table this and find out some of these details first.
Is that a motion?
We only have 2 weeks. I mean, we meet every 2 weeks now. So what is the date of the next meeting?
December 11th, I think.
I'd like to table this to December the 11th.
Is that gonna be a tabling to get him to do the topo prior to
Well,
him
to
making a
find out the
decision?
information, or either to tighten up these conditions that it has to be done and that there has to be some coming back to the council on where these buffers are gonna be and whether or not we still wanna do it.
Well, we're already requiring 10 feet, as far as deciding
From
exactly
where?
where that is. From Florence Circle,
Buffer zones start from the property
Come,
line.
could you come back up?
we're
Yeah,
We're
buffers
requiring the 8-foot
So that's in the
fence.
back.
on the back part, because that's where the residential
Houses
uses are, on the rear, on Florence Circle, so where the buffer would start. Where the buffer would start would be from his property line, the actual property line on that property. So from where it starts along Florence, 10 feet, that's his buffer yard in the rear, undisturbed vegetative buffer.
Have you ever known an understanding of where property is to be change once the survey's done?
Well, how do you mean so?
So let's say I think that my property line is right here, and I get a survey and I find out it's actually over there. Have you ever seen that happen?
I've seen that happen, but I guess if we're requiring as a condition that he gets the properties combined, that's a survey. He's gotta get a survey to do that Bobby and I both have to review before it goes to Douglas County Courthouse to be recorded. So at that point, he can, if he gets that survey, we'll know where those boundaries are. If he needs to see where, and they put pins out at that time to show, or stakes out, this is where the boundaries are. From there, he can count as 10 feet. We can also review that, inspect it prior to any approvals as far as him getting his business license or certificate of occupancy to operate. If that pleases the council. But I think surveying is a part of what we're asking in the conditions at this point.
So who's gonna take care of that? Who's gonna take care of the survey combining properties?
That's in the conditional use, I mean.
That's the applicant's responsibility.
I guess the only, this was going on pretty smooth, but there seemed to be a little bit of hesitation in Bobby's response. And that's what I think the council is responding to.
Mayor, I have not had a chance to walk the lot, so I really don't know, in my opinion, how, if and when a drainage issue has occurred on the lot. I can also go do that, but a topo is gonna be the only way to solve that. But if water's coming off Veterans Memorial Highway, that's contributing to the problem.
Nothing you can do.
That,
And that would be logical, that's where it'd be coming from.
it's logical to assume that the trees are going to be removed, because if you're gonna park cars out there, you gotta have an open
A certain
lot.
amount. And didn't you say also that there's legal processes for if somebody was putting water on someone else's property already in place, that we don't have to fix all those things? I hate to see us drag this.
There's legal
drag this out
processes
and make
all
it
over
so-
town, and like I've already pointed out. Look, I'm gonna try to table this one more time, which I've already done, and if we don't do that, then you'll make another motion, I'll vote no.
We have a motion on the table to table this until the December 11th meeting. We'll have a second.
I have a question.
Hold your question. Do I have a second to the motion to table?
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second to table this until the next meeting. All in favor?
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
David, can we consider that? Is the topo and the stormwater something that we can consider when we're making this decision? Because that doesn't sound like a conditional use criteria to me.
Well, my decision, tabling this is not just based on that. The tabling it is also tightening up on these conditions.
Y'all can do that.
I mean,
Well,
You can modify them or remove them or add to them right now.
So we're gonna vote.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. Any further
I got
discussion?
I have a question. Which ones are you trying to modify here? I might have to withdraw.
Well, I want to be clear about how long vehicles will sit on the property. I want to be clear about the fencing that they put up and the type of fencing that they put up. I want to be clear about the timing on when that's done. So some of that is in here, but some of it he said that he would do, and I wanted to see it modified in the actual staff recommendations.
Any other comments or questions on the motion to table?
In your modified, are you talking about, he said he can't tell you the exact date for how long they gonna say that.
Yeah.
But, so I'm just asking, how would tabling it give him?
Well, for the amount of time on the cars, we don't know, but maybe we could put something in there like 30 days. Before it turns into a junkyard, that's my concern. I mean, I've watched this happen.
I don't have a problem if you set a max of 45.
Council needs to handle this. Okay, any other discussion on the motion to table? If not, all in favor? All opposed? It is 2-2.
Congratulations, Mayor. Up to you.
I will cast my vote to table this to the next meeting. Okay, Item number four.
Mayor, before you move on, I do want to make one other point on that because I think it is important. The city took the official position in the prior dispute that the water was not coming off of this lot onto Ms. Melinux's. That was our official position in the litigation. And we believe that we could prove that.
So,
Ma'am, look, we've already acted. Thank you, though. Bobby, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, the next item, excuse me, Jim just changed batteries.
It's working
They're
now.
working great. In an effort to improve the lighting at the parking lot over at Pine Mountain Gold Museum, we need some more lights, some big floodlights. We reached out to our power provider on the Douglas County side, Greystone Power. And they've offered us a really good deal to put three poles in that parking lot with 3 400-watt LED flood lamps. The upfront cost to the city to do this work is $235. And of course, the lights will be billed at $16.75 each per month on a flat rate. But they won't install the poles on the city's property without a dedicated easement. So that's the item that we have tonight. Just where they put the poles, like a 2-foot by 2-foot, it's a blanket agreement that we're asking to get it executed so we can move forward and get this done.
Mr. Macklin, have you looked at this?
I have not.
It's Greystone's standard.
Would this be typical, Bobby?
Yes,
You've got a lot of
absolutely.
experience in this.
Typical.
Okay.
Sounds like a good
We've
deal.
done it on other.
It seems like the right thing to do, but I just wanted David to.
Yeah, we couldn't match this deal 4 times over with what Greystone has offered us, so.
And the need for this, I'll speak to that. Right now, when we have an event over there at night, we have to bring in that little portable standard that sits down at the end of the parking lot, and it's just not sufficient. So it's very dark in that parking lot.
And at $235, that's a good deal.
And I will add, just having looked at it quickly here, it looks fine to me.
Okay. I make a motion to authorize the mayor to execute the easement agreement between the City of Villa Rica and Greystone Power Corporation for the purpose of installing new poles and lights for the parking lot at Pine Mountain Gold Museum.
Second.
I have a motion in many seconds. All in favor? I think everybody seconded it, so nobody should be against it.
Nope.
Item number 5.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to defer this item to our city attorney.
This is the amendment to the Alcoholic Beverage Code. As you recall, you passed some time ago to send a referendum to the people as to whether or not to approve the brunch bill that was approved by the legislature earlier this year. The citizens of the city of Villa Rica voted and did overwhelmingly approve the adoption of the brunch bill. In order to actually enact that, you have to revise the ordinance, which you have before you. The one thing this does is that it simply changes the time at which licensees for a consumption on premises license can begin serving on Sundays from 12:30 p.m. till 11 a.m. That's really the only change.
Well, we discussed this before we put it on the ballot, so it seems like there wouldn't be a lot of discussion here. I move to approve the ordinance amending section 4.210 of the Alcoholic Beverage Code of the City of Villa Rica as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Thank you all. Thank you, Bobby.
I think that also that this takes effect immediately upon signature. So if the question is asked, establishments that have that license can begin operating under it this coming Sunday.
Okay. Tab E has already been taken care of. Tab F, City Manager. One item on there, use of city vans for the Christmas tour of homes.
I received a phone call from one of the participants in the proposed tour recently about the city's involvement, their responsibility, et cetera, and what I understand now, having met with the people involved yesterday, is that they misunderstood what our commitment to help them and Main Street's commitment to give them some money meant. And the distinction that I made when we met was what organizing and sponsoring and being involved with meant. When we say to someone that we'll help them or that we will sponsor what they're doing, what that communicated was we were going to be in charge of it. The term that I use when I say that is that we're organizing an event or that we're running an event. In this case, Main Street is not running the tour, not organizing the tour. They did vote to give them some money. We did help them with the promotions, which has resulted in, more than 125 ticket sales. But at the end of the day, what got communicated was that we would help them with transportation. The problem is that this is not a city event, and we do not allow private residents to use city vehicles. At the same time, the people that have volunteered to drive in this event are sitting in this room. And so I wanted to at least bring this to your attention, much to David and my chagrin, and see how we're going to extricate ourselves from this, because the vans are necessary in order to do the event, and I think that the event, as it's proposed, could be very successful. There, as you know, for those of you that have committed to driving this thing, it's 2 sessions on a Saturday, a meal, a tour of 5 houses over a couple of hour period. So I think it's a positive event, and it's something that the city has actually run in 2015 and before. We just haven't done it the last 2 years. So I don't know what you're going to do with this, but I wanted to bring it to your attention. I'm not going to authorize it without you telling me it's okay.
Why?
Even though some of y'all want to drive in it.
Why are city-owned vans necessary? They can't rent them.
They're renting 4, but they need at least 6 because they've got so many people signed up now. And we made a verbal commitment to them back, months ago that they've relied on. So, what's your pleasure?
It says right here, staff recommends that we allow this year's tour of homes to use 2 city vans.
Yep.
As
You
long as
have city employees who would be operating these vans?
And elected officials.
I got a call.
I did not know that.
I love Christmas. It's our historic homes all decorated. How can you say no to that?
Are they insured to drive city vehicles?
Have we, do we have any precedence for
Yeah.
us doing this kind of thing?
I'm just trying to think through it. I mean, the baseline is that, the city can't make gratuities. You can't just
Which
give
is sort of what
things
that
to
is.
people. But we do have a little bit of a precedent with regard to our fund that we have created to sponsor economic development in the city. For example, the Taste of Villa Rica, that organizations are able to come and apply to get a grant, to rent our city facilities for that. It's somewhat similar to that.
Well, did we create that grant this year? We didn't, did we?
I think you did, but
We have
we
exhausted
have I don't know if we've exhausted or not, probably.
So we did create it and we did exhaust it this year.
Yes.
So you don't have any money, Leslie.
Unless you amend the budget to provide for that.
Well, you've spent it for 2018. We've started a new fiscal year.
Oh, so actually, it's all still in the budget.
I mean, I'm just trying
Changed it.
to think of a precedent you could follow to justify why you're doing it.
That works for me, actually.
And that is a precedent that we've established for other similar organizations for similar purposes.
Should I extricate myself from this?
When we
vote?
created
Too
that, that was the reason that we did that. It was about 2 or 3 years ago when
Right.
we first started doing that, and we did it so that we could sponsor some of the events like the Taste of Villa Rica, or be a part of it.
And it's not strictly a gratuity if the city is benefiting from the activity. The Taste of Villa Rica is a big draw to the city. We have it. The art show, I think, is another thing we sponsor, which is designed to bring
And
people
those
in.
are, I think you're gonna have a harder time continuing that sentence when you get to these vans, but
Well,
I could
the
agree
purpose of the
to do
tour
it
of
that way.
homes is similar, though, to draw people into Villa Rica, and it serves an economic development purpose to bring people into town. I think it is going to be very critical to check, to make sure that the people that'll be driving these vans for the purposes they're driving them will be insured, because the last thing we want to have happen is to have somebody be in a wreck. And
are all city employees and elected officials insured to drive city vehicles?
I can't answer that question.
I don't think elected officials are.
We'll have to check
I don't
on
know
that.
that they are or aren't. But that's an easy
So if we can find a
question there.
way, I can find a way to support this through that, if you can find a way to be sure that we have the vehicles insured with whoever drives them.
Can
I
we
don't-
modify the motion
That's
to an additional condition? Because my condition on there was that only staff or elected officials drive.
It says that.
But
Staff
we
or
can add
officials
something
who are
there for
insured.
Insurance, yeah.
Who has the answer about the elected officials driving vehicles? Because most cities I know, the elected officials drive vehicles everywhere they go. So who has that answer? Stephanie? Is Stephanie here?
No, we'll ask the insurance. We'll talk to the insurance company.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think they probably are, because you're right, people drive vehicles to conferences all the time. But they don't drive them necessarily for the type of purpose we're talking
Right.
about, to haul people
To do a
around.
tour. No, I get that. So, how do you want to modify it then?
Insured employees and elected officials.
Okay. I move that we allow the Christmas tour of homes to use 2 city vans on December the 8th, 2018, under the operation of either city staff or elected officials, provided they are covered by the city's insurance policy.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. City managers report. Tom?
All right, I wanted to give you an update on where we are with the projects. If you'll take a look at the presentation, Elisa's going to put it up on the screen. So we talked about 8 water and sewer projects that were short-term that we could complete by 2020, and there's been a change with one of them. So I want to give you an update on that, and then I want to talk to you about some things that we learned on Monday.
Water sewer funding plans.
Okay, so what's changed is the water plant. So we were gonna make 3 basic improvements out there. One was an additional basin and filter, and we're gonna add what's called a sludge pond. What we have done historically is direct discharge into the creek, instead of having a sludge pond and generating solids and having them hauled. But compliance is heading our way. That plant has just been grandfathered, but that's not like a perpetual grandfather like some other ways we use that phrase. So we need to have that structure created. The problem is that the water plant sits almost in a floodplain, and we can't make the topo work for the sludge pond and the transference of the material to work by gravity. There's not enough elevation change on the site to locate the pond where we can do that. So we're talking about potentially more than $1 million additional expense to make this improvement from what we originally estimated. So as we get better numbers on that, I'll bring that back to you. But I wanted to, what's that? $1 million in addition to what we were estimating, which was $3.5 million.
But the benefit, just for those that may not have heard that when we talked about it, what's the benefit in us adding this sludge pond other than the compliance aspect?
Because if we don't get in compliance at some point, we won't be able to operate the plant.
I thought it was gonna also.
Well, that's a benefit.
That's a big
I mean, but
benefit. We gotta do
isn't
it.
there a increased capacity
Oh,
element
yeah.
to it?
Yeah, I mean, there's other benefits to the improvements because of redundancy and all that. Capacity, sure, but we gotta stay in compliance. Am I overstating that, Pete? I mean, is some point down the road, we gotta get in compliance. So anyway, so that's the bad news. All right, then this is the worst news. So we contracted with Brennan back in late spring, early summer to go look at all the lift stations. And we contracted with Goforth Williamson to pull all the pumps at all the lift stations for his review and for examination. So we're beginning to get the feedback from that process. And so if you'll flip over, Elisa, to the lift station piece, keep going, this maybe number 6 or so. There you go. Go to the next, there you go. So you'll remember the project. We were looking at the stations. We wanted to know what the available capacity was because we know that we've got a couple of places where we think that there's as much flow going into a lift station as the station can handle. In fact, we think now there's at least 3 that are maxed. We were thinking that the changes that would have to be made to get the stations up to speed would be maybe $1 million. Just, we were ballparking at that point. But Elisa, if you go to the next slide, this is what we heard Monday. And I've said this to you before, so I know that you've heard this. But what we have on our sewer system isn't a system, it's just a bunch of pipes. It doesn't work together. And one of the reasons is because the pieces were installed with a view just toward whatever development was being addressed. So when Bay Springs was built, when Augusta Woods was built, when Twin Oaks was built, when Summergate was built, each of those involved a lift station that was very tunnel vision oriented, and it looked at fixing just that problem, but it created all kind of upstream issues. There's even a place on 61 where we have 2 force mains that are in the same easement, side by side, for not just hundreds of feet, but anyway. So that's one issue. That's sort of just the general description of what we've got. And how we got there partly is a construction issue. So we probably didn't have adequate regulations, but even if we did, some of the workmanship is just poor. And then we compounded it by not having oversight. So we never employed somebody or retained the services of somebody that was inspecting this work, either in the design phase or in the construction phase. And so we've got issues like vaults that don't have drains, and so they fill up with water, and the mechanisms inside are submerged, which reduces their life. We've got stations that don't have bypass lines, so when you have to go work on them, you have to manually bypass the station. We've got stations built where there's no recorded easement. We've got one that's built beside a piece of property that we own, but not on the property that we own. It's on somebody else's property. We've got one with no fencing, which is a huge safety issue. And then we have all kinds of safety considerations and trip hazards and fall hazards and all kinds of stuff going on. We've not done a good job of maintenance, and there are air release valves on the force mains that haven't been maintained, and they all need to be replaced in the whole system. Electric control issues. And then I want to tie back to something that came up in the last meeting. We have at least 9 force mains out of the 31 that don't have enough flow. And what happens chemically to sewage when it sits is it becomes more acidic, and you get eventually sulfuric acid out of it as a gas, and it eats the pipe and the manhole. And so we've got system-wide damage in that chemical process. What you get is a rotten egg smell, right? And that's what we heard from the residents on Myrtle, where we have a single industrial customer on a single force lift station and force main. They put almost no volume into the lift station, so it takes pump cycle after pump cycle after pump cycle after pump cycle to move enough volume to push flow the length of the force main. And by the time it gets to the end of the force main to the manhole, it is wide open sulfuric acid. And it eats the calcium out of the manhole. It eats the pipe. You got the idea. So that's what we're dealing with. I wish I had better news than that. All right, and then the other one that has changed, Elisa, if you'll flip on over to
Inflow.
the I-20 crossing. The quick fix, keep going, the other way, toward the back. Yeah, I-20 quick fix. No, I go back. Keep going. There you go. No, the one after that. There you go. Okay, so I told you that we have a bottleneck. And the bottleneck exists just north of Walmart's parking lot behind the post office that's on South Carroll. There's an 8-inch line under the interstate. It's not big enough. So we have a quick fix it's not going to resize the pipe, but it's going to help us with what happens when the flow gets underneath 20 and gets on the north side of 20 coming this way. What we now know is we have an identical bottleneck under 78 outside of my office. I've been sitting looking at it the whole time I was here and didn't know it was going on. But there's an 8-inch pipe under 78 that's carrying all that same flow. And it goes all the way through the Grady Brown property to the railroad. So in the creek, in the property beside City Hall, there's a sewer line that's too small. So that bottleneck is a lot bigger than we thought. So what's going to happen is we're going to start at the last manhole on the south side of 20 behind that post office and have to replace that pipe all the way from there under 20 through Food Depot and Ingalls, across 78 and all the way to the railroad track. And then it tees into an interceptor line that's big enough.
What pipe we gonna put in, 10-inch?
We haven't sized it, but no bigger.
Well,
That's all of 61 goes through that pipe. So that's probably, let me think what we were estimating. We were estimating that about a fourth of our volume goes to the north plant. The other 3/4 goes to the west plant, and about half of it comes from the east-west transfer station on Cleghorn and Anderson, and the other half of that 3/4 is coming through this pipe. So it's about 3/8 of everything we handle. It's a significant issue. All right, and then if you go to the the next slide set there, Lisa, I wanted to talk a little bit about redevelopment now that that's passed. So what I'm working on now, and I'll be bringing you a recommendation on a consultant to use as we do this, is the creation and the council approval of a single redevelopment plan under the authority of that redevelopment act that was voted on by the voters. And in that redevelopment plan are going to be two different tax allocation districts. One of them is downtown and oriented around Mirror Lake Connector, and the other is oriented around the Avamore development, which is the 220-acre mixed use on 61. And what we want those to do is to help us pay for, on the front end, the road construction, the new water lines, the new sewer lines, the regional stormwater detention, the walking trail, and whatever else we want to build in there, and pay for that with future property taxes. So that's the way the TAD works. You issue bonds, you build out the infrastructure, the property tax from the new development goes into a fund that makes those bond payments, and at the end of 10 years or however long, you start getting property tax and everything's paid for. Okay, so that's the idea. So that's where we're headed. So this is what I learned. We have to wait until December 31st of 19 to have the property values certified. So the earliest we can approve a plan is January of 20. So what we're going to be doing during 19 is building this plan. How big is the territory and what improvements are we going to make, and then designing the improvements and estimating the cost, and then seeing if the numbers match between the proposed development value and the cost of the infrastructure. So that's where we're headed. So that's what we're going to do in 19. The potential being that we start on the Mirror Lake concept, Mirror Lake Connector concept in 20, or as far as design, maybe construction in 21, and then Avamore could get started in 20 and 21 as well. All right, Lisa, if you go to the next one. All right, then we have some other projects that I wanted you to know about. So we've talked a little bit tonight about health insurance renewal and open enrollment, so that's going on. Elisa is working on a software system set up to keep up with board and commission appointments and termination dates, and trying to avoid the problem we had tonight with the staggering. Sarah is working with Cassell to redo our accounting database to accommodate the new fiscal year. So that happens, I think, on December the 6th. We have been meeting with and working with the architect that designed the improvements for Butterballs, and have asked him to present to us something consistent with your direction that we can use to bid the work on the exterior. So that's underway. You guys approved a reorganization in this budget. It has paid all kinds of dividends already. Having everybody together has allowed us to complete jobs in a fraction of the time that it took a piece of the group to complete. For instance, cutting V-Plex has taken sometimes more than 2 days, and we've gone out there with a bigger crew and knocked it out in a day. Same thing with other projects. We've seen that over and over again. Wesley was trying to get ready for the Christmas train thing out at Pine Mountain, and was huffing and puffing and worrying about getting all the lights hung, and so we just threw everybody out there for a day and just hung Christmas lights like crazy all over the place and just knocked it out. So that has really paid off. And then the last thing, and I don't know how many of you visited, but we've relocated customer service, and I've been up there once. I don't know if y'all have been up there at all, but the ladies love it. Jim's up there. He loves it. He's got an office finally. So if you have an opportunity, go up there and see it. We probably got, 30 people a day to start with walking into City Hall. It's down to 2 or 3 or 4 a day now, if that many. I mean, it took a cycle, 2 cycles, October and November pretty much, and people that come in have gotten it, and they're going to the right place and not coming in. So that's where we are today. So I know that's a lot of stuff, but questions?
Well, I just want to make a comment, and Tom and I talked about this because we're fixing problems now, obviously, that I don't blame on any one person individually. It was a collective bunch of problems that happened and bad decisions, but what would be even worse is if we made the same decisions again. And the question that I asked him specifically was, if we have a new Avamore coming in or whatever, who is going to be that construction supervisor, a person to look and make sure that the plans are the plans, and that would be Bobby, I'm assuming, but who then is going to go out in the field and make sure it's built like it's on paper? Because that's how, well, every time I come in and see you, you're covered up with stuff. So I just don't, I want the collective body here to understand that, it's bad to make a mistake, but it's even worse to make it twice. And so if it means that we have to, if y'all come to us, Tom, if you come to this council and you say, we can't do this, we just don't have enough staff, then it would be worth our while to say we're going to hire a construction supervisor for a period of time to make sure it's in the ground like it's on paper. And that may have been a tough pill to swallow back many, many years ago, but looking forward, the benefits of that would have far outweighed what we're about to spend on the mistakes. So
If you've driven by Westview in the last 3 weeks, what we have there is a failed sewer line due to faulty, shoddy work, where the ditch was filled with gravel instead of dirt and compressed, compacted. And as water got in that gravel, it ate the dirt away and washed the gravel away slowly over time, so that underneath that intersection of West Wilson and Dogwood were voids. And the strength of the asphalt and what dirt or gravel remained supported that whole intersection. So we're replacing that sewer line from 78 up to the intersection with a new manhole and then a whole new intersection after we fill it back in with dirt.
You said West Wilson, but you're talking about Westview, right?
Westview, excuse me.
Westview, yeah.
That happened about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was just a little 10-year time bomb ticking away.
but again, no one
And it
called the
blew
fact
up.
that the contractor was
And
filling the hole with gravel.
but we let the contractor do what he did, and now we're gonna pay multiple times more to fix that than it would have cost to do it right and inspect it back 10 years ago.
You know, there's no pleasure in talking about this kind of stuff, but you're gonna be paying for a lot more than that, because this kind of thing has gone on and on and on.
2 decades.
To Jeff's point, I mean, how many things have come before the council that end up getting approved that we never follow back up on, we never do anything to make sure it was done right? And that's kind of what's going on all through the system. And if you just think about that intersection you're at, Westview has been cut open probably a half dozen times after it was repaved over. I mean, it's just, so that just goes back to several months ago or a year ago when you talked about bringing in, you know, these outside folks to help us with our planning and make sure that we, you know, don't put the cart before the horse, because we end up having to go back and redo so many things. So I just have a process question on your city update. You said that we would need to wait until December of 19 to certify property values.
Right.
What process is that? Would that be whatever the assessor has set it at 2019, or do we do something separately?
It's, I don't think it's us, I think it's,
It's a tax assessor.
So
It's the
wherever
county.
the tax assessor has set the values in 2019,
and there must be some formal document that he produces for the parcels in the digest.
because you're calling it a certification
In
as
the
well.
district.
Is that a correct term?
Say
He has
again?
to certify that?
That's the language that I took away from the conversation.
She does.
That time, well, she does in Carroll County, that's right.
Yeah, they're both in Carroll.
Those projects. You made me lose track of what I was gonna say right there, but, point being, we didn't know that at the time.
I did not know, I
We
didn't
do-
know it.
We
till
know it now,
today.
but I don't think it fundamentally affects what we were gonna do anyway, because our time frame was gonna be like that. But that was my only question, thank you.
There's a fringe benefit from that construction you got going on in Westview. The Dogwood problem, the speeding is down to nothing. There's no cars
Yeah, it's
taking
down to
Dogwood.
zero. Good.
There's no cars on
But it
Dogwood
was
anymore.
clogged up 78 a little bit more.
Yeah, that's true.
Down at the
Moves
light.
around a little bit.
Just as a note, you should know that there was one resident that drove through the barricades on both ends of that job and then complained to us about the dents in her car.
I got the call before y'all did.
How could that happen, though, honestly?
That's inconceivable to me.
I'm gonna be careful, they might be in the room. But there's a lot of signage and cones out there.
Thank you, Tom. Do we have any executive session? Okay. I would entertain a motion that we adjourn. Have a
Second.
motion and a second. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank y'all for being here.